Hi YouTube, Watchify here with another video. This one's a follow-up to my recent unboxing video for this Seiko SNJ033. I've been wearing it regularly and I can say that I'm still impressed with what you're getting in this watch, but of course I'll also point out any issues I might have with it. The size of this watch might be the thing that worries some the most, so I'll go over that first. I measure the case at 46.5 millimeters, which no doubt about it is large for watches, and that isn't including the large crowns on both sides of the watch. Lug to lug distance is 50.8 millimeters and thickness is 14.2 millimeters. Size for my 6 3/4 inch wrist, the watch weighs 163 grams. So with those dimensions, when on wrist, you definitely know you're wearing a substantial watch. Do I think it's too big though? Well, not for my wrist, and I think anyone with a 6.5 inch wrist or above would be fine. I think the main limiting dimension would be the lug to lug distance, as if your wrist is smaller than 6.5 inches, I think the lugs would overhang your wrist. The main draws of this watch for me are the overall look it gives off, which is very tool-like and almost industrial, the metal shroud, the solar movement, and the digital display and the features that come along with that. This watch retails for $680, but on Amazon it sells currently for $490, and on eBay the lowest price I found was $418. At closer to $400, I'd say that's a good price for this watch. I've heard of many receiving their watch with cosmetic quality control issues, and I was expecting the worst, but I was pleasantly surprised when I found none. Taking a look at the case, you can see the horizontal finish work on the shroud, and that looks pretty good to me. The shroud is held on with 3 small hex screws near 1, 5, and 7 o'clock. There are also 2 additional screws near 10 o'clock, and I'm not sure what their purpose is, as it seems like that section is actually part of the watch. Of note is that the shroud does have some polishing on the top cutout sections and near the bottom, which I think looks good. You'll notice that the shroud is also slightly wider at the bottom than the top. There are 4 prominent crowns that are about 6.9 millimeters wide. You have to unscrew them by turning them clockwise, which is the opposite of what you might think to do, and that's because you're actually screwing up the crown to get the water-resistant seal. When you screw it down is when you're able to press the function buttons. The top right button activates the LCD backlight, which on this watch is white, and a long press will show you the battery charge level, which is a nice feature. It also operates the stopwatch function, which means you can't turn on the backlight when in stopwatch mode. The crown at 3 o'clock operates like a traditional screw-down crown and allows you to adjust settings on the LCD screen. To my knowledge, there is no way to manually move the hour and minute hands with this crown, and they just adjust to whatever is set in the LCD section of the watch. The crown at 4 o'clock operates the dive mode function of the watch, and this is the only crown that shows blue when in the open position, which kind of makes sense. I don't know a ton about this dive mode feature since I'm not a diver, but from what I understand, it tracks your depth and time at each depth, and will give off an alarm for any unsafe ascent. It can store 100 dives in this dive mode, and I'd be curious how many professional or even recreational divers would actually use this watch's features over actually using a dive computer. Lastly, the crown at 8 o'clock changes the mode of the watch. Modes available are local time display, alarm, dive log, and stopwatch. Underneath the case is a screw-down case back with the Seiko Wave logo, and which notably says Made in China, which I'm not sure if I've ever seen that on any of my other Seiko watches. The lugs are short with polished sides and they have drilled lug holes. The bezel has a coin edge, and I wouldn't say it's the easiest to rotate, mainly due to the shroud, but it isn't the worst either. The bezel rotation feels and actually sounds crisp. The black aluminum bezel insert is done in the SKX style, which I think looks good with this watch. The dial is just a simple matte black, and I can't see any transparency, even though this is a solar movement watch. I like how this model has the LCD display at the bottom of the dial instead of the top, and I like the 24-hour markings just above each dial indice. There's a good amount of green Lumabrite on the indices and hands, and the hands have a brushed finish. Thankfully, the chapter ring and bezel insert are in alignment with the dial indices, and the second hand is hitting the minute marks. Covering the dial is just a flat Hardlex crystal. This model comes on a metal bracelet that I'd have to say is actually pretty good. The top intersection of the Seiko Monster Style links have some polishing that adds some visual accent. This bracelet has straight end links since the lugs on the watch are so short. It tapers from 21.7 millimeters to just under 20 millimeters where it meets the clasp. The clasp is fold over stamped metal, but I'm not going to knock Seiko for doing that this time, as I think it works well and I find the clasp is thin and comfortable to wear on wrist. You're also going to get a Dairies extension on this bracelet. My one gripe with this bracelet is the way that Seiko did the pin and collars. There isn't a part of the link that holds the collar in place while you try to push in the pin, so at least for me that makes changing out the links a chore. I guess people consider the pin and collar method of connecting the links to be superior to the regular split pins though, as the pin and collars are less likely to loosen and fall out. The movement in this watch is the solar quartz caliber H855, which seems to be a newer movement from Seiko. From what I understand, it can go 5 months on a full charge and has a power saving or sleep feature that turns on if the watch isn't exposed to light for 2 hours or more. It also has a feature that allows you to realign the hands to the time on the LCD display if they ever get out of alignment. I'm not sure what more there is to say. I think this watch definitely has a distinctive look and is another example of an original Seiko design that has stood the test of time. There will be some that won't like that Seiko didn't include a sapphire crystal, a better milled clasp, or a ceramic bezel insert for the price, but honestly, those things don't bother me when it comes to this watch. I think this watch is just trying to be a utilitarian watch that looks bold on the wrist. Could they have made it smaller? Maybe, but I don't think it would have the same presence that it conveys now. That's going to be it for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful or interesting, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, or even consider subscribing. Of course, I wanted to thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.